here at the university. I'm delighted to be gathered today for this really kind of historic event, it's fair to say. Let me, before I turn this over to Glenn Parkinson, the representative from the Osher family, I want to make a couple of thank yous that happen to be really the conduit or the portal for making things like this happen. And there are two people that I particularly want to point out, and one of them is Glenn Parkinson from the Oshers, who has been such a faithful steward. And secondly, I want to point out somebody on our side who has stayed with this path at every moment and has relentlessly been positive and has been relentlessly skillful in her approach to this, and that is Mary Sylvester down at the end. Maybe you don't think so, but I think lawyers are important. And there are two men who had such professional integrity as they approached this, and that is George Isaacson from the Osher family and James Thalen from the university system side. And see George, and I think James is here, they're right there. Please join me in thanking them. And I have numerous people on my staff, but let me also mention a man who has perhaps the most integrity of anybody you can deal with in Maine, and the most thoughtfulness, and that is John DiMatteo, who the Oshers wisely asked to help out. So with that, I want to turn the microphone over to Glenn Parkinson, who has become a colleague and even a friend in this process, and has helped us begin to develop what will, I think, be the most exciting announcement from a philanthropic point of view, but more importantly from an educational point of view and from a behest point of view, and the legacy of Dr. Osher. So I'm going to turn it over to Glenn Parkinson to talk about what this means to the Osher family and what it might mean to Maine and the world.
Thank you. Thank you. It is indeed a pleasure to be here today. It's been a long road to get to this point at times, but as Glenn Cummings said, the team that has worked on this has done a phenomenal job. And I personally want to thank everybody who has been involved in this process. For me, this has been a labor of love. My opportunity to help cement, preserve the legacy of Dr. Harold and Peggy Osher has been a very meaningful experience for me. This is a big deal for me personally, so thank you for that opportunity, Harold. Dr. Osher's working career began at Maine Medical Center, where he was chief of cardiology. I've spoken with cardiologists there at the Maine Medical Center, and they refer to Harold as legendary. His impact on medicine transformed the way medical care is understood and delivered, and has helped make Portland and the state of Maine such a wonderful place to live. Today we're here to announce another gift from Dr. Osher and his late wife, Peggy, to Portland and to the state of Maine. In March of 1975, Harold and Peggy were in London. They stopped at a shop and looked at old maps of Maine. Harold was clearly interested in the maps, but he hesitated. So Peggy said, "Harold, if you don't buy that map, I will." And she did. And that first map that began this collection cost £5, and it's right over here on this table over here. It's an 1866 map by Colton of the state of Maine. Harold does nothing halfway. People are chuckling, Harold. They know you. His collection of maps quickly became one of the most significant collections in private hands. The question became, what should they do with the collection? Dr. Osher asked the question, what makes Portland a great city? He answers his own question by saying, Portland is a great city because we're in a location that is a gift from God. I think we all agree with that. But then he goes on to say that any great city is built on great cultural institutions. Harold and Peggy wanted their collection to strengthen the already strong cultural institutions that we are so lucky to have here in Portland. In addition, Harold and Peggy were brought up believing in the value of an education. Harold's mother taught him that once you had a good education, nobody could take that away from you. Their decision to place the collection in a public institution, educational institution here in Maine. They decided they wanted their collection to be here at the University of Southern Maine. Dr. and Peggy Osher have already made significant gifts to the Osher Map Library and to the University of Southern Maine. Today, Dr. Osher and the university have reached a new agreement for the rest of his collection. Dr. Osher's collection totals over 450,000 maps. Wow. Now, I'm a country boy, but that's a big It all came from that one map over there. Some of the maps are so old that they're available for purchase only every few decades, if ever. There's some one-of-a-kind maps in this collection. On one level, this is a priceless collection. To truly price this collection is difficult. There's so many maps, and they trade so infrequently that you can't really come up with a real number. It's been estimated that this collection that Harold is gifting today is worth over $100 million. Wow. And that's a big mistake. That's an estimate because there has never been how do you evaluate 450,000 maps? So, in addition to the maps, there's a significant monetary gift also that's being made. For Dr. Osher, the monetary value of the gift is not the important point. The real value for his gift is in terms of education and research. He and Peggy worked to create a library of distinction, a place that held real value for educators and researchers. As Harold says, as I looked at maps, I began a voyage of discovery. There is an array of information in maps if a person takes the time to study them. These images involve all areas of human activity, not just geography, not just politics, not just religion. Every area of human activity is eventually portrayed. He continues, you can learn more from studying maps than reading entire books. They are a powerful way of communicating information. Maps are ideal teaching tools. They are primary sources of information, often from ancient times. Then he finishes by saying, I want the Osher Map Library and the University of Southern Maine to be leaders in using maps for research and as powerful educational tools. The gift and this partnership puts the University of Southern Maine in a position to fulfill Dr. and Peggy Osher's vision. The vision of maps being used as powerful teaching tools. This gift adds greatly to the cultural institutions of Portland and the state of Maine. As a Mainer, I want to thank my friend, Dr. Harold Osher, for this gift. And I want to thank Glenn Cummings and the University of Southern Maine for accepting this gift and the challenge of creating new ways of teaching by using maps. Thank you.
On behalf of the University of Southern Maine, let me first of all say thank you to the Osher family and to Dr. Osher and Peggy Osher for their devotion to maps and the educational integrity of maps, and to their devotion to Portland, Maine, and to the University of Southern Maine. We couldn't tell you how humble and how honored we are to be part of their legacy. I will say from our point of view today, it is an important endorsement. They could take these maps and they could be anywhere in the world. The Smithsonian would welcome them. Private collections would welcome them. The Huntington would welcome them. Places in Berlin and London would welcome them. Dr. Osher sees the University of Southern Maine and Portland, Maine as a place where he loves and wants to commit to our future. That is humbling. It's a little bit intimidating, and it is an incredible statement about his faith in our future. The people we have here, the direction we're heading here, and why he believes in us matters to me a lot. My wife knew Dr. Osher's mother. She was a young girl. Her grandmother and Dr. Osher's mom used to hang out together in Biddeford Pool, and my wife says, I always wanted something from the Oshers too. I always wanted a ticket to the amusement parks. She always gave it to me. So they're very popular in my house. I want to say that this is the largest gift in USM history. I want to say that we now believe it's the largest gift in the University of Maine history. Also, I want to point out that the integrity of this gift and the power of this gift is amplified today and yesterday by an international conference of cardiographic scholars who are here today. And if you are part of that conference, coming from as far away as Australia, London, Berlin, would you raise your hands today if you're coming here from I'm going to finish by saying that I want to just publicly thank my team. You know, this is a lot of work. This has probably been 15 to 18 months of very detailed conversations, trying to make sure that the Osher family got what they needed and that we could be loyal to that and make sure that we could fulfill that. And I want to say thank you to the USM Foundation. George Campbell is here, Ainsley Wallace is here. They've led that so well. As I pointed out, the whole team at the foundation has been there. Our provost is with us, and she and the dean and many faculty members have been involved in these discussions. So please join me in thanking them. And finally, I'm going to turn the mic over to a man who has perhaps one of the most respected reputations in cartography in the world. A man who is writing the history of cartography. God bless him. I don't know that a lot. A man who has helped us put together this conference and has consistently shown what real academic research and teaching is all about. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Matthew Eddy.
Thank you, and thank you, Harold and Peggy. As an academic, I've been given an impossible task. They've asked me to keep it brief. And also, between them, the two Glens have also stolen all my talking points. Maps are just, I don't know if anybody in this room has been bitten by the map bug, and that's probably everybody here. Maps are just fun. They're amazing tools for looking at all sorts of things. If you look at our reference collection over here, you'll find books in history, art, politics, science, geography, literature, foreign languages, printing, publishing, sociology, I said politics, economics, all of which have been informed by the study of early maps in some way or other. So I've had a great fun for the last 24 years playing here. Harold and Peggy's collection in particular. Because Harold and Peggy were great connoisseurs. And I mean that really positively. because they always had a discerning eye for the quality of the items that they acquired. They never went for a slightly disheveled map or a binding that was broken. They always held out for the best quality. And it's such an amazing joy to work with their collection and to handle stuff that you know is pretty much close to what it was like to be handled 200 years ago, 400 years ago. And that's what my students really get a kick out of when you come in here and they use the collection, is handling materials that people handled years ago. That's the connection that they make. So, I'm just going to say, thank you, Harold. Thank you.
And Harold said, don't forget to also thank his wife Peggy for all this. Finish by having one of our premier professors, one who has done so much not only in the classroom but in research and has already been the leader in using these maps in the classroom. She has been a model for the rest of the faculty in how maps can help teach on multiple levels. Please join me in welcoming our Professor of History, Dr. Libby Tishkov.
It's really a distinct pleasure to be here honoring this historic gift to USM and really to the people of Maine, and honoring and celebrating the tremendous philanthropic legacy of Dr. and Mrs. Osher and their family. As a public historian, a visual historian, a Maine historian, but really most importantly a teacher, I can't really fully express how important this collection has been to my own professional growth and development as a historian and educator, but more importantly, the significant role it has played and will continue to play in informing new generations of students, teachers, scholars, and Maine residents. From its inception, the distinct kindergarten, and I have a kindergarten, so the kindergartner, so this is near to my heart, the kindergarten through high school, university, and lifelong learning educational mission of the library and its collections, including access to material usually only really reserved for scholars, for students at any level, and the general public, has set the Osher Map Library apart and really promoted a vision of education that's inclusive, hands-on, high impact, and transformative. It's simultaneously local and global in its reach and accessibility, thanks to expanded reading room access, K-12 field trips. I want everybody to know and to thank Renee Coyle, who's the Education Outreach Coordinator. More than 3,000 Maine K-12 students have been through this map library this year. Public lectures and exhibitions and massive cutting-edge digitization efforts. I want you just to imagine for a second this reading room during the academic year and the adjacent Cohen Center classroom. They're hubs of activity. You would see 3rd and 4th graders learning about the history of Portland, college students attempting to understand the vast changes between the United States in 1800 and 1900. And they mill about the room, they talk to each other excitedly, they pull someone else over, they tell a discovery they made, they ask a question, they go over to Bob Spencer, the vault manager, and ask him to find another map that will give them more context. I want you to imagine and to really see a look on a student's face when a map helps them grasp a difficult concept for the first time. Imagine students gathering around maps of the world, excitedly pointing out to their classmates where they're from, where they've been, recognizing their own stories and their own histories in these ancient and modern maps. Imagine a group of faculty in a teaching seminar marveling over the resources laid out before them, law professors and social workers, creative writers and engineers all brainstorming about how they'll use these maps in their own research and scholarship. Printmaking students come here to learn about the craft. Geography students cluster around Professor Edney in the seminar room looking at these maps. Art history students, physics students come in to look at the new Art of the Spheres exhibit. I don't have to imagine any of these things because I've seen them all. And I've seen them all this year in this room, in the room next door. I feel the excitement of the discovery and of finding oneself in the past. Next year, USM students will learn math through maps in the Osher Map Library, which is exciting. So the curricular possibilities are really endless, and we really look forward to expanding field trip access, holding pedagogy workshops and seminars for K-12 teachers and university educators, and particularly promoting cross-institutional collaboration around Maine's upcoming bicentennial. The Osher Map Library's maps will play a really important role in understanding the history of our state and the future. And I would say finally, in addition to my deep gratitude for the educational vision of Dr. and especially Mrs. Osher, in a time where, where politics and border crossing are everywhere in the news, right? And maps can really help us to understand borders as creations, as human creations that can be done and undone. And I think these maps are really going to help a whole new generation of scholars understand where they came from and where they're going. So thank you very much, Dr. and Mrs. Osher.
Dr. Osher and I are going to sign in front of you this document, this legal document, but I want to finish with this small anecdote, because there's a temptation when you look at maps that were originally touched and created in the 1400s to think that maps are nice, but they're not the future. I just want you to know that I spent about 3 months ago an hour with a sort of friend of USM from Google in Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is a man who's made a lot of money in the original development of Android. And I was asking him, what is he doing right now? I'm always curious, like, what's the next level? Because these people are always thinking 2 levels, 3 levels, 10 levels above us. And he said, I think the whole QWERTY, the QWERTY keyboard is outdated. He said it's sequential, it's not how humans actually solve problems. He said, we actually solve problems by mapping, he used this word, mapping them out visually. Most of us do that. He said, we need to go back to boards on our computers where we can use words, pictures, numbers to solve complex problems. He said, effectively, we are cartographers of our own brains. And so he is saying the future is moving back to these visualizations of complex problems. So please don't hold the unfortunately outdated view that maps are of the past. They are of the present, and they will be even a more prominent place in the future. So thank you, Dr. Osher, for knowing that in advance before many of us understood. Uh-oh, here you go. We're going to test these a little bit more. That's this one. I think our work is done.